I am Marcus Aurelius Gallius, and this is my century. The mad witch Boudicca's forces were ahead of us at Colchester. As legionaries, it is our duty to prove ourselves in battle.
Yes, they're the ones, I'm sure.
Come on, anybody else to go to? I'll come to back. Back right away. Just come on.
They were spirits, with their metal beasts.
Welcome, Roman legionaries, indentured servants, and undercover bosses, to episode 435 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 11th of January 2022, and featuring Big Finish, Sphere of Freedom, written by Nicholas Briggs and starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and I'm hoping that the bandwidth issues I saw were on my end and not anybody else's. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
I am about frozen to my bed.
Alex Fireheart.
From one northern doctor to another.
And Mad Matt Winchell.
If you're talking about stream issues, I've only lost 5 frames so far, or 55 frames so far.
Cool. Yeah, I had Twitch open just to see which opening you picked, and then it was showing the spinning ball of death. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna guess that it's me, and I'm gonna make sure I close some extra tabs.
Which is exactly what I was doing before we started.
Right.
Let's close these tabs. Let's close those tabs. Oh, there's some extra programs that aren't supposed to be running. Let's close those.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot I still had a window open from my previous meeting.
I went with the Centurion opening because that made the most sense, even though no matter what happens, you end up with Arthur.
Even though he turns into King Arthur at the end, because I have the cheap version of Sony Vegas and I couldn't animate properly.
See, I would just put a Centurion helmet backwards over the back of his head and then just have it that.
Ha! How's everybody's week going?
Well, I brought it up in text chat, but I had to purge my old Facebook account because someone tried hacking into it. They fucked up so badly that the person that they actually hacked was probably from Canada, for what I could tell, because I managed to find who they actually did. To message. Not that it really would have helped given they've been hacked, but they did seem to nuke their account as well. But it was like, oh, yeah, that's on top of some shit that happened after the stream last week where I got scammed out of some money. Yeah, 2022 is off to a shit start for me.
The weird thing about that is that all the easy ways to get into someone's account are, specific to accessing one account. So hacking the entirely wrong person's account seems like more effort than it's worth.
Yeah. Because it only occurred to me because they were showing screenshots to be like, ooh, whatever. And then it occurred to me, hang on, I don't know any of these fucking people. They fucking hacked the wrong person. So they ruined 2 people's lives. And it took me until fucking 5 in.the morning maybe to get to sleep because my anxiety was still going nuts. And yeah, so that absolutely sucked on top of everything else. And originally I was planning on whenever I could get it taking 2 weeks off work for mental health reasons. when I went to work the next day, because this happened Monday, I just went fuck it, and I I put in for the entire month of March off because I knew I had not used any leave in like a long time, or at least not enough leave that I wouldn't have been able to manage that. So yeah, thankfully I have sympathetic supervisors, so they're just like, yeah, you're fine.
And thankfully, you live in a country where not non-management staff get time off.
Hmm. Oh yeah, we have to. We're like the idea is it's like I think if I don't forget if I'm entitled to a specific amount or if it's just accrued leave over time. Like you work off, like, the more you work, the more percentage of leave you gain, sort of a thing.
I'm sure I read the amount of time at some point, but I just know it's much better than anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
except for like Congress. And Congress, it's not technically time off. They're supposed to be, actually talking with the people they represent during their vacations
Which they don't do.
instead of, hanging out in yachts.
Well, that is the people they want to talk to.
And
You know,
therein
the
lies the
people
problem
with
with
the
every
money.
government. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
And therefore the power. But we're not a political podcast, so
Let me see here. Well, since last week, since you guys didn't get to see me last week, not only did I have to work till close, but I got asked in, I believe, the day of to come in like a couple hours early. I'm trying to remember. There was something else that came up that I got asked in for some ridiculous extra hours too. I forget what it was. But other than that, against better judgment, I decided to play some more Sea of Thieves on my own, since the other gaming group I'm part of is occasionally doing that late nights lately. And I've actually been having decent results. First of all, I finally soloed some skeleton ships on my own, which that would have been nearly impossible, at least to my reckoning, like a week or two ago.
Ah.
But then I had a really good one today. So there's a group called the Reaper, the Reapers. They're essentially anti-pirate pirates that will steal from anybody and everybody, and to hell with the rules, essentially. Which basically just gives you the okay to run around and pester anybody, especially if they happen to be like part of another merchant group trying to make money quick. So I noticed there's one of them there, but I also noticed that the Reaper chest, which is a thing that can randomly spawn on the map and will give away a big, like, worldwide noticeable mark on the horizon, was spawned, and I'm like, I don't want to get near the Reapers, but because it says there's one person on the map that's already a Reaper, but at the same time, it's worth it for the money to get that chest and send it in. Because occasionally it'll also give you a more rare currency that can give you like some of the how you want to say it, some of the hard to get stuff, like end game level stuff that you can get in the game. You can get through the currency that drops from that chest. So I went, hell, it'll be worth it. Stopped off at one island, had someone parked next to me, to which I'm like, oh fuck, and immediately left. Because the Sea of Thieves is also a sea of a bunch of assholes, even with the Reavers not on the map. And people just open fire if they see anything move.
Sea of Assholes. Now there's a game title.
Mm-hmm. So I took off, and for whatever reason, they never attacked me, and they never barged onto my ship. So I'm just like, well, I'm not sure what they were doing, but lucky me. Went to the next outpost I could find, dropped off all the normal stuff, then went to the place where there's a Reaper hideout where you have to send the chest in order to actually get anything out of it. Get there, the Reapers, sure enough, did a U-turn to come back to that island to wait for me. I skidded past them. They opened fire, bailed out my boat for a while I kept marching forward. As soon as it got to the coast, I just abandoned ship with the chest, let my ship keep sailing as they kept chasing it and shooting at it. Went to the island, went to the Reaper leader, turned in the chest, then went out to the other end of the island to watch as they finished shooting my boat into the water and just went, and you get nothing for it.
Ugh.
And they just kind of sat there paddling in the water for a few minutes after realizing what just happened and then shot me dead. And I'm like, yeah, you get nothing for that either. They literally wasted a ton of cannon fire on me to get nothing.
Yeah. You know what all that reminds me? Is that the whole time I was on winter break, I did not reserve any time for gaming. I just worked on my thesis the whole time.
All work, no play makes a mad adult boy.
Well, I have not had a really memorable week, so I've been sick most of the week, and it's been really freaking cold outside the last couple of days. Like negative Fahrenheit.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And COVID is getting so bad around here again that my Saturday and Monday gaming groups have decided to go back to being online again.
Makes sense. I think the U.S. total cases is the highest it's ever been right now.
Yeah, and Wisconsin's leading the pack.
Oof.
Yeah. It's like every day I wake up and look, and it's like the previous day was record amount of COVID cases in Wisconsin. Oh, fuck. So, joy. Means I just don't get out much, ever. We were going to watch Spider-Man No Way Home this weekend, but there was no place we could find to get it online.
Oh.
It's technically a Sony movie, and Sony doesn't have a place to go to right away.
Yeah, apparently it'll be going to Stars as soon as it comes out of the theaters, but...
That could be another month or two.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Ghostbusters movie yet because of that, and I just went, you know what? Fuck it. The physical copy is coming out right around my birthday. I pre-ordered it.
So I know at least my Roku app suggests that I buy it from Vudu, which is apparently part of Fandango, which makes sense because Fandango is a movie theater ticket site. I don't know what Vudu is, if it's streaming
Not
or
cool.
what.
Not a clue. I barely know Fandango being what it is, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we're on to tonight's show.
Well, I'll give my own brief update. It's
Oh, I thought you had already.
Oh, no, not yet. But yeah, talking about rising COVID cases, it's the start of classes for the spring semester for me, and despite everybody with any common sense on campus's protestations, they're going forward with having classes in person. So if I'm ever going to get COVID, it's probably going to be this month. But we do have the KN95 masks now to hopefully stave that off, but can only get lucky for so long. Also, I realized I looked at my Fitbit after my lecture today. I wonder how much can I get away with my cardio being, lectures and social interaction, because those all raise my heart rate up enough that it counts as cardio on my Fitbit. But I'm pretty sure when my doctor tells me to do cardio, she's not saying, have social interactions and give lectures.
No, she's saying go for a goddamn walk.
The thing is, when I go for at least a regular walk, it doesn't register as cardio. A power walk does, but a regular walk does not register as anything because my heart rate doesn't get up enough.
Well, mine do, but that's me.
I was kind of pissed off because I was going, the elevator in our building is, in our classroom building is under construction this month. So I have to walk up 3 flights of stairs to get to my lab. So I'm out of breath and wheezing by the time I get there. But I think at most it counts as 1 minute of exercise. Because it just doesn't quite, like, even though I'm out of breath, my heart rate isn't up enough to actually count. And the whole reason I'm doing exercise is so I can do things like that and not be out of breath. So it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, wait till you get COVID. You'll be wheezing just walking.
Yeah, it'll undo all of my work. Yep.
And then some for about a month.
But at least with being triple vaxxed, Omicron shouldn't be too bad. But then again, apparently they may have found a new strain. And I'm going to stop there because YouTube is going to flag this and be like, oh, what you don't know what you're talking. I don't know what I'm talking about. But they may have found a new strain, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Of course they
On
did.
tonight's show.
Well, that's the way of these things. We thought we were just about out of the woods, and then Omicron hit. So hey.
Yep.
Viruses mutate. That's why they're so bad.
Yep.
I keep playing frickin', Pandemic 3 and Plague Incorporated and going.
Plague
Or
Inc., yeah.
Pandemic 2, I should say.
Yes.
Well,
Actually,
yeah.
do they have a COVID mod for it yet?
They probably do. I haven't paid attention.
Wouldn't surprise me. I forget what disease was after it was done. They made a mod for it. For Plague Inc.
SARS. Maybe.
SARS, swine flu, bird flu. Just about every major disease in the last 10 years is they've made a version of it for Plague Inc. Anyway.
Yep. Anywho.
Moving on. So on tonight's show, we have birthdays, a little bit of birthdays, a little bit of news. And I mean, it's bare bones here, people. Then we've got Geek Talk.
It's not bare bones.
Matt is going to review of Shame, last week's episode, which he missed because of work.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to go into our episode review, which is Matt because he missed last week. Our summary, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get into it, starting with birthdays. First birthday was on January 6th. And that's the birthday of Rowan Atkinson, who played the Ninth Doctor back in Curse of Fatal Death in 1999. He's better known as being Mr. Bean. He turned 67.
And what is that spy character? Johnny British or something like that?
Johnny English.
Johnny English.
Yep, he is also Blackadder.
And Blackadder.
And I recently saw a YouTube video that incorporated Mr. Bean into Cyberpunk 2077. It was disturbing.
I can't wait. By the way, I've been hearing leaks about Cyberpunk 2077. And apparently, they are definitely aiming to make some huge improvements, but we'll see.
Yep. I will share that video with you, Matt, after the podcast.
Yep.
Anyway, on the 8th was the birthday of William Hartnell, who was the original Doctor from 1963 to 66, and again briefly in 1973. He would have been 114, but died in 1975 at the age of 67. So happy birthday, Rowan and Bill.
It occurs to me that the first and ninth Doctors might be the two roles that have had the most actors play them. Then again, the Shulka Doctor and the Rowan Atkinson Doctor aren't quite as canon as the Bradley and Herndal Doctors are.
The first Doctor is definitely the one that's been recast the most.
Yes.
So moving on to episode news. Of the Daleks, and there's no video for this. There's no actual news article.
Yeah, I just got an image up.
I had to go dig this stuff up to get the consolidated and 4-screen final viewing figures for Eve. There were 430 million consolidated viewers and 440 million 4-screen viewers. I did not have the 4-screen breakdown, nor do I know what that clocks Doctor Who in for that particular week.
Yeah, that's low for Doctor Who, but I don't know what it means for New Year's in particular.
New Year's was low in general.
Yeah, it was really low in general, from what I've been hearing.
Hmm.
And if it's
I don't
also
know.
low
I
turn-ins
don't
after
know
a week,
why
it's like,
nobody
oof.
should have been out partying, but I guess they were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
but
gonna say.
did they party all week? I don't think so.
Either that or everybody just slept through New Year's with a hangover.
Oh, that's right. It's not even like it was New Year's Eve. It was New Year's Day.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
The title kept making me think it was going to be New Year's Eve.
Nope.
Oh, that's suicide because everybody's watching a ball drop somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and fireworks.
It's the same ball every year. Why do you need to watch it every year?
I don't know. All I know is I miss Dick Clark and Casey Kasem.
Although
Right.
apparently this year one of the news anchors got drunk and went on a tirade against de Blasio, so I guess that would have been funny to watch live, but
It's already alive.
All right. And that's all the news we have. Big Finish was very quiet this week. They made some announcements for upcoming stuff, but nothing
Nothing
new.
released.
Yep. So that'll take us to Geek Talk. I could rant a bit about British tabloids announcing who the next Doctor is,
When they have
but
no
it's not
clue.
really. When they
and
have no
Screen
clue.
Rant and whoever the fuck else.
Yeah, a bunch of people already making assumptions with no facts are already at it
But
again.
Hmm.
I did this bitch before Jodie Whittaker was announced, and I did this bitch before Capaldi was announced.
Hmm.
Kind of sick of bitching about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're just gonna
Yeah.
summarize. Stop it. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop it. Go to the corner. You know who you are.
And anyways, moving on.
Moving into Geek Talk.
Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, so somehow I still haven't made it all the way to the new trilogy, but I did finish the Amazing Spider-Man Mark Webb duology, or who's the actor? Andrew Garfield, I
Andrew
think.
Garfield, yep.
Yep. Because I say the director, but a lot of people say the actor, so I'm like, I guess I should say both. So Amazing Spider-Man. At first, I was very skeptical watching the beginning of Amazing Spider-Man. It was in the Fantastic era, so everything was hard to see and gritty. Ben and May had been so perfectly cast for the Raimi movies that they have to keep downshifting them with each reboot to avoid looking like they're making the same movies over and over.
Yeah.
However, once Peter put the mask on, I could really believe it. He started off with a mean streak that made me realize just how similar Spider-Man's backstory is to Batman's. But once he started wisecracking, it was completely perfect. I also loved him with kids in these movies. Just the various interactions he has with kids are great. Gwen Stacy also managed to be unlike either of the love interests in the first trilogy. So I have no idea which version of Gwen Stacy is true to comics because she was a bit before my time. But she was still an enjoyable character to be around. Also, all of the dick moves that Peter does are informed by personal tragedy, so he doesn't come off as bad as Tobey Maguire's Peter can. A few final notes on the first movie. The Lizard has a bad case of Voldemort face, and his character diverges enough from anything I knew about the character that it kind of defeats the purpose of the character. I'm pretty sure the 90s animated one was true to the comics and
Yes, as far as I'm
is
aware.
definitely a much more sympathetic and much more interesting and tragic character to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that very much is the Lizard.
The first scene where Flash appears, he's beating up someone named Gordon, which is a fun Easter egg, and I wonder if Lee and Ditko came up with that or if the film writers did.
Most likely the film writers.
Hmm.
I've actually read early Spider-Man, and I have not run into anybody named Gordon.
Gotcha. Amazing Spider-Man 2. I get what they were going for, but the movie really felt like a mess. Part of it was the amount of energy that it put into foreshadowing the Sinister Six movie that never happened. It also feels like Green Goblin was crammed into the movie at the last minute because they knew it was their last chance to have that certain one big scene that I actually had managed to go years without having spoiled for me until the No Way Home trailers started coming out and people started talking about that scene. And I was
Oh,
like, I did not know they had done it in live action until then.
I knew.
This is another movie where there are 3 supervillains, and all of them feel underdeveloped. Although Rhino is probably better off underdeveloped. I think his role should not have been any more than it was. It was just enough.
Yeah, Rhino's a very simplistic character. He's
Right.
like mid boss for a movie. He's perfect for a
Although
second ringer.
Although I did prefer him in the '90s animated where he was a henchman for Kingpin a lot of the time, just
Yeah,
because I think
again,
that's the
second
sort of
ringer.
character he belongs as. But that said, his role in this movie is as it should be. But both Electro and Green Goblin felt underdeveloped here. So altogether, I can see why Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of the least liked Spider-Man movies. Not horrible, but definitely not as good as the others.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's really all I have to say about these 2 movies, other than I watched Homecoming, and I should hopefully be giving a review of that whole trilogy next week, depending on whether or not I can find a safe way to watch No Way Home.
Okay, Doc. All right, next one then.
All right. Yep.
Yep.
So West Side Story with a bleak poster.
Yeah, like I don't really have like a ton to say about this beyond the fact that I went into this not having watched the original movie version, and I've definitely never seen the stage play.
The one we watched every
Um,
year in middle school.
um, it's honestly, it's interesting that to me this felt like it was actually able to capture the feel of the era of musicals this is from. At least the original movie was from. But at the same time, this was made by Steven Spielberg, who was growing up at the height of the movie musical, or at least right before it fell off anyway. So to that end, it's like, okay, so someone of that generation that could make this work and not feel, because that's just it. This is still set in the 50s. This is not, even though it's a modern adaptation by virtue of being, coming out when it does, it's not set in modern day. Which I don't know if that really would have entirely worked anyway. Like some of it would, like the racism and shit definitely still would have worked. But yeah, a lot of the optimism probably wouldn't.
Racism has
Sort of
definitely
thing.
changed since the 50s, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting to see that he went out of his way to both bring Rita Moreno back, and she was in the original movie version, and served as an executive producer on this one as well. God knows there doesn't seem to be any white people in brownface in this version, which there absolutely is a lot of in the original movie version.
Oh, I
Apparently
didn't
they
know
even got
about that.
Yeah, apparently they even got a lot of the Puerto Rican actors in brownface, which made no sense back then. But
The hell?
anyway, yeah, weird Hollywood standards at the time. Yeah, it's like, honestly, I really enjoyed this. There's a few bits of the story which I don't know if they're unique to this version or not that bugged me, but it's like very late on in the movie and it doesn't ruin the entire experience for me, but it was just like, huh? But yeah, if you like these kinds of big these kinds of musicals from the era this is like trying to evoke, I would absolutely say this is worth checking out. I'll say this much. I used a gift card, but I had to like see this on a full price day. So if I'd had to pay for this normally, I still probably would have been fine with that. But yeah, it's a bit, yeah. And honestly, the visuals aren't too much that seeing this on a big screen would necessarily be a go out of your way to sort of a scenario. So yeah. I think that's all about I've got for that, which is good because I went for about 3 minutes for that. So moving on from that.
Before you move on really quick, seriously though, this poster is bleak as hell. It's literally just painted black with white text. No pictures, nothing. Just says West Side Story. I'm like, I commented earlier, you know, this would be more effective if the title was Precinct 13 or some other action movie. Just saying. Anyways.
I mean, the idea is that they're in a neighborhood in New York that's being basically demolished so they can put in rich people housing. And it's a Romeo and Juliet modern-ish take, so it's always going to be a tragedy anyway.
But yeah, it's still not exactly what I would imagine for a poster. But anyway.
Like, it's not the poster I've seen, but anyway.
The only one I can
moving on to
Ghostbusters
Afterlife. Yeah. Ghostbusters Afterlife is an interesting thing for me because I did not see the original 2 Ghostbusters movies until like the past couple of years, properly. I'd seen bits and pieces of them, but never like actually sat down and watched the whole damn things.
Okay, I got a meat test for you. Tell them about the Twinkie. There we go. All right, move on.
But yeah, like I was kind of worried going into this because I'm used to, at least with Star Wars anyway, that they'll try to do these franchises, bring them back, tie them to the movies that people liked, or movie that people like, since I seem to be in the minority of people who actually like Ghostbusters 2. And like overdo it.
Most of us like
nostalgia.
Ghostbusters too. It's just we don't think it's as good as Ghostbusters.
I relegated it to roughly about the same. But anyways, yeah.
But yeah, this to me handles, I mean, again, I don't have nostalgia for this, so I'm coming from this from a different perspective, but this to me felt like the fan service and nostalgia stuff was handled way better in this than in something like The Force Awakens. Like, it's not ramming it down your fucking throat. I mean, I still found it weird in trailers that Paul Rudd's like, "Oh my god, you guys don't know about the Ghostbusters?" Because I'm like, one, they weren't alive, and they do bring that up in the movie. And two, it's like, isn't the whole shtick usually that the general public don't usually give a shit? But
well, it was New York, so then not only do the New Yorkers not give a shit, but also it's a case of what have you done for us lately, which became a running issue with the Ghostbusters, apparently.
Yeah. But yeah, generally I enjoyed this. One thing this actually has in common with Force Awakens is the first time a proton pack is fired in this. It's a similar thing with like the first time a lightsaber is ignited, or at least Luke's lightsaber is ignited in Force Awakens, where all the other sound goes away. And you just hear that go off. And it's like, okay, that was very effective because they're making a point of this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is happening again. Yep.
Yeah. I think like the one issue I had with it is that it feels to me, and maybe this is because I've only seen them properly like once or twice, but it feels to me like this movie kind of ignores Ghostbusters 2. I mean,
I've heard that
like,
there are references there, but they are references very light in there.
Yeah, they're very light.
I've seen other people say it pretends the 2 never happened.
Yeah, I mean, they do seem to have a
but
moment
I've heard
where
that it is very light on the 2 references, just in case.
Yeah. It's like Ghosts attack New York in 1984 and never again in the 80s, seemingly. But yeah, like, even then, it's like that was only something that occurred to me after the fact. The movie is otherwise very good. It did still manage to tug at my heartstrings here and there. If you were a diehard fan of this, you will probably cry. I watched at least one review where someone did mention that they cried twice, and they were a lifelong fan of it. So get ready for that. But yes, I definitely recommend seeing this. I would have to rewatch the other 2 and this again, but I'd definitely say this holds up as a very good tribute to what has come before, even if it feels like they kind of ignore two to a point. But yeah, that's about all I've got for that.
All right, and then Matrix Resurrection.
Yes. Now it's funny with this because I remember not liking the sequels as much of the Matrix
The
when
sequels
I
were
was
pretty
younger.
lame duck.
Then I rewatched them in preparation for this and actually really enjoyed them. So, like, there's some goofy shit. There is goofy shit in there, and they are not perfect. I mean, none of these movies are perfect, but they held up better for me for some reason on a rewatch this time. And Matrix Resurrections, it depends on what you want out of this movie. Do you want big, sweeping, epic with the war starting up again? Well, then you're going to be disappointed because this is a very contained, scaled back to like the scale the first movie was on, kind of, but it also doesn't negate what happened after Resurrections. Like, one thing that I will say is that in their real world time, 60 years have passed between the events of Resurrections and this. Oh, sorry.
About to say
Revolutions and this. My bad. Like,
Yeah,
so
the names all run
Matrix
together.
3, and Matrix 4, there is a 60-year real-time gap between, which is why a lot of people, even myself included, were confused as to why Morpheus actors changed. It's because it's not technically Morpheus. I won't go into much detail beyond that, but yeah, it is not
Davros is still
supposed
alive,
to be.
Right? Oh.
In fact, I think the only like human character that we really get back, aside from Neo and Trinity, is Niobe, and she's an old woman to emphasize the fact that how much time has passed. So yeah, like, keep that in mind. But yeah, otherwise, I think like the opening half hour might also put people off depending on what you want out of this, because it's basically meta commentary on the perception of the franchise.
I could summarize my perception of the franchise after the first one with one word. It's not going to be a happy one.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know. My expectations were just, I didn't have any. I was just giving this a shot because I figured, fuck it, why not? And I really enjoyed it. Is it like, oh my god, amazing, this is going to stick with me for the rest of my life kind of amazing? No. But I didn't regret seeing it at all. I'm glad I got to see it. And yeah, I don't know really what else I can really say without going into spoiler shit that I don't want to. So yeah, like, I enjoyed this, and I would recommend that people at least give it a chance. You might not necessarily like it, but with the mixed reactions out there, there's a chance that you might. So, you know. So this is definitely one that it would probably be best to rewatch, as much as you probably wouldn't want to rewatch the sequels. So you've got a refresher of what has happened up to this point.
For me personally, the third movie was the only one I didn't really care for, so I would not
I
mind
remember
rewatching.
enjoying the animations poking fun at the sequels more than I actually like the sequels.
I don't know if I can stand that much Keanu Reeves in one sitting.
Whoa.
I know Kung Fu.
You don't even say that right, Matt. It's, whoa, I know Kung Fu. You gotta get that. You gotta get that Ted Logan accent in there.
Actually, I saw that clip recently. He doesn't have that much of a Ted Logan accent, at least not during that
And
particular scene.
and
He
so
does in others.
20 seconds left. Was that your final thoughts?
Yeah.
All right. Which brings us to the the review of Shame.
Real shame. So I guess I need. Actually, that's right. We're not really timing this. This is just me doing my review for
last week, which you
last
missed.
week's Eve of the Daleks. So I guess starting off with journal thing I liked.
Yep.
Oh god, I need names now. I've been having issues of names in real life. Daleks. If I could suddenly spell as well. Thank you, dyslexia. I really needed this right now. I'm trying to type something quickly.
Pulling up the Eve of the Daleks TARDIS page.
IMDb actually is what came up first, and that's exactly what I needed anyways. So I will say, journal thing overall, Nick actually had me worried before we saw the episode. The little art thing they gave out was kind of, oh boy. The trailer made me a little more at ease of him. He's kind of a cookie cutter character. I think we've seen characters like him before, but I'm perfectly fine with him in this. He was surprisingly better than what I was worried was going to come out of him before we actually got to see the episode. Art didn't help. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with Nick, and he turned out to be a semi decent character for this, and thankfully also even got to survive to the end. So that's not always something you get out of a guest appearance for a character in a Doctor Who episode. Journal thing I didn't like. I'm trying to actually think of a journal thing I didn't like at all. It's actually kind of a struggle. I'll maybe bring something up if I can think of something. I can't think of a journal dislike at the moment. Actually, no, I got a journal dislike. It just dawned on me. The Daleks were acting very strange in this episode. In particular, at one point they couldn't blast their way through a door and then waited around for several minutes before deciding they had enough and blasted through the door anyways.
Yeah, we
talked about that.
Okay. Yep.
The fact that the Daleks with an advanced laser blaster Gatling gun couldn't cut through a centimeter thick aluminum door, yeah.
Or just sat there for several minutes and then decided to do it, and it's like, what? Why?
Well, they had to give a sporting chance,
them trying
obviously.
And failing, yeah.
So favorite moment, I guess, would be the next thing. Dan, flustering the Dalek, basically wasted his time. That was actually probably the most genuine character moment we've gotten for Dan so far, and I did really enjoy that. Just him waltzing around, talking about needing his manager.
You're new here, mate.
Wait, you are wasting my time. It took you long enough to realize. So what you gonna do about it then? I think least favorite then would be the next one. It's a bit hard for me to decide on any of the least favorite stuff, and I'm not coming. It doesn't really come to me right away. It's been about a week.
So you're gonna skip that?
I'm thinking about it.
Or you're just thinking about it?
Yeah, I'm thinking whether or not I want to skip it or not. I'm trying to think of there's any particular moment where it just went nope. Actually, no, there was one moment that at least I'll go with baffled. Not exactly I hate this moment, but a moment where I'm like, wait a second, what? And that's when the Daleks showed up like extremely early in one of the next attempts and just obliterated the other two right off the bat. And it's just like, whoa, doesn't that mean that they're dead now? And then they still came back the next try again, and I'm like, how's that work? I thought they were like caught off guard really quickly and really easily and got killed before the time was up.
Oh, like before the 1 minute or whatever had passed.
Yeah. Because the dogs caught them like really quickly that one time.
There's a lot with the time loop that doesn't make sense.
Yep.
But that one in particular just like, wait, what? Shouldn't they both be dead now? Then you just literally wasted our time with these characters? No, they're back to the next loop. Whatever, I guess. I don't know. That one, like, that one was a head turner for me. It didn't quite match up right. But anyway, so I guess overall feelings about the episode.
Yep.
Overall, here's the funny thing. This is a standalone episode again after Flux, and just like Flux, I think the standalone episodes for Chibnall are better than his usual run of affairs. So this actually works better than half of Flux did. The background characters are only here for the one episode, and they're once again getting more time to actually be characters outside of the companions. Although Dan does finally get a moment to be Dan and show off what he's good at and what he's capable of for at least a few moments. So at least Dan got something to do, and there was some decent banter between there's some decent banter between him and Yaz. Yeah. Again, my brain is being screwed with names lately. There's some decent banter of him and Yaz, which didn't always happen. Which they are at least showing something of a group thought process they're going on.
Right. Well, yeah, she's his he's her companion more than he's the Doctor's at this point.
Basically.
He traveled with Yaz for, 3 years around the world?
Something like that.
He's known the Doctor the Doctor's known him for a week.
F that. Oh! That just brought up another thing I had an issue with. So, at the very beginning, they say that the Doctor saved the universe. When?
Yeah.
Last time I checked, 3/4 of the universe is fucking gone.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Over that.
When did the universe suddenly get saved? Because last time I heard, most of it was fucking deleted.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where, like, does he mean technically in the sense that, like, well, it wasn't completely destroyed?
Yeah, there needs to be some.
Remember they fed what was left of the flux to the passenger form, so I think that is what they're counting.
That doesn't count. That still means that only 1/3 of the universe is still there, and the rest of the universe is still foobarred.
I mean, it's not the first time that's happened in Doctor Who, and they gave it even less attention in at the end of Legopolis.
Technically true, but we weren't also watching it happen half the time like we did in Flux. But
no, it was an ongoing issue with Nyssa, but as soon as Nyssa left, it never came up again.
Yeah,
that's true too. But yeah, that was another thing that made me go, wait, what? I mean, what's left of the universe was saved, but there's not a whole lot of it left anymore.
Yeah. It's either that or it's a sense of they're basically saying, no, we fixed it off. We fixed it off screen.
And you can't just fix that off screen. You need to show that shit.
Yeah.
Excuse you.
Yeah.
There's no hand waving that, especially in modern time story writing for a TV show, Chibnall.
Yeah.
Anywho, overall, outside of little things like that and occasional silliness when the Daleks were trying to be more serious, the majority of this was pretty good. The background characters were really nice. Again, the companions got a little bit of breathing room, but not a whole lot in this one. And I'm also kind of worried there's a subplot between Yaz and the Doctor that they're trying to amp up, but I get the feeling it's never going to get a payoff. I'd be very surprised if it does, and actually, if it does try to get a payoff, I wouldn't be surprised with the way Chibnall runs things that it'll be a anticlimax again. But we'll see.
Right.
But for this episode alone, a fairly decent episode, but not an amazing episode, I'd say is the final thought.
Okay, and your rating?
Battling with myself. I'm kind of somewhere between 3.5 and a 4. I'm trying to decide which end of that I'm at. I guess depending on how things turn out, I might retroactively change this, but for now I'm going to say a 3.5.
That puts you in the same category as Ran and Alex.
What did you rate it?
I rated it a 3.0 because I was like, it happened, but that's the best I couldn't really
Okay.
give a more powerful opinion than it happened.
It was okay. It was definitely not great. And then maybe it'll go up if other things that tie to this also amplified it a little bit, but that's a wait and see scenario right now. And I'm lacking a bit of faith right now in you, Chibnall. Prove me wrong. But we'll see. So that's my thoughts on Eve of the Daleks.
That brings the total to a 3.38.
Before we continue,
Mm-hmm.
it has become obvious upon listening that this adventure is more like a 2-parter or a 3-parter at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to make this a non-voting episode?
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And see if anything else actually ties directly. Actually, I would say keep the scores right now, and we can decide if we want to delete them later.
I really don't like doing that.
Yeah, like from what I can tell.
Not for Eve. I'm talking for Spear of Freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the episode for today. Okay, yeah, never mind.
Eve was its own episode, but for the audio we're covering today. But it seems like it's 3 parts of one story, which definitely throws me off as a Ninth Doctor story because that's really not mimicking the TV format at all.
Yeah, I mean, what was there? There was Aliens of London, World War III.
Yeah, there's the occasional 2-parters, but there's never a 3-parter.
Yeah.
Right.
Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways.
Bad Wolf
was
Parting of the
Ways. Was the other 2-parter he had.
And
Empty Child, Doctor Dances.
That one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So we had 2-parters, but not 3. But yeah, from what I can tell, this is Volume 1 is one continuous story throughout.
Right.
And it's when you get to Volume 2 that they become standalones. That are like
a more
thematically similar.
More serialized standalone.
Yeah.
You don't need the next part to have a complete story.
Yeah. Like, I think it's with Volume 2 and 3, apparently it's like they're thematically similar, but like separate stories.
Okay. So, now that we know that, we can cut the voting out of this. And now it's to the summary with Matt.
So, back to the summary. I assume someone's got a timer ready?
Give me just a second.
Just so I'm not the only one.
Yep. So go ahead in 3, 2, 1.
All right. So we start off the episode. The Doctor is talking to a apparently new companion named Nova. He sent her to drop something off somewhere in, I assume, some sort of underground sewer-like system, and she's coming back up to the surface. The doctor's getting very anxious and wants to leave because they believe security of some kind is going to show up. Nova manages to get to the surface. They manage to make eyesight on each other, which is when the security shows up and apparently whisks everyone away. The only people left there are the doctor and a strange woman that bumped into him just moments before Nova arrived. The woman starts questioning him about things and why he's upset and what he's possibly thinking of or trying to plan. And as she continues to do this, she becomes more and more suspicious. The doctor, meanwhile, gives up fairly freely most of the answers she questions him about. The plot basically starts off that there's a bunch of time ebbies, and the doctor's trying to figure out what's going on with them and what they're doing. He appears in the 1950s, I believe, in London, and finds out that Roman centurions have been dropped off in the middle of one of the large parks, and have massacred about 300 people because they weren't prepared for an armed army with soldiers and swords. The doctor tries to, as best as he can, to make this a peaceful stop to this particular fight, and trying to get the soldiers back to where they need to be in history, but also trying to find a way, if possible, to undo whatever damage has been done to history, because a bunch of people, 300 or so, have died and weren't supposed to. Upon a bit of talking and a little bit of help of some silence from the soldiers that were marching around him, he manages to actually find out where there was some sort of time material on these soldiers, and he's actually been able to now track it using his sonic. Going back to his TARDIS, he continues to follow the time ebby just after it also abducts a soldier that was right outside of his TARDIS, and gives him another chance to close in further. This is when he meets Nova, who is I believe, a cook in one of the areas nearby, and after a bit of back and forth, she starts believing him slightly, even though she still thinks he's crazy, but likes the idea of possibly getting out of being a cook for the rest of her life and finding a better planet to live on. This is when the doctor convinces her to take the device, and he's planning to undo the time ebbies and send everybody back and undo all the damage the ebbies have been already begun to accidentally do, including the Roman centurions. But as previously stated, everything comes to a front. The security find out, and they abduct everybody, except for the doctor, and the woman starts to let drop as the doctor starts figuring her out that she is apparently involved with the people who created the time ebbies. And as they continue to confront each other a little bit more, the security is brought back out again. The doctor escapes the TARDIS, and then the TARDIS is locked into, I forget what it was, some sort of stasis where he's able to see these creatures that apparently they're making the time ebbies to protect themselves from, because they're looking for a weapon to possibly stop the creatures from destroying mostly their planet in the immediate vicinity, but also trying to save, in part, the rest of the universe from these creatures escaping. But that is where we are left off.
3 minutes, 36 seconds.
I'm at 35, so I was just slightly faster.
Oh, yeah. You might have stopped before me because I wasn't quite sure if you were done or not.
Yeah, that's what I said, and that's where we left off.
Okay. So, let's go and talk about what we liked about the audio.
Okay. Still rolling?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Yeah.
Did you just...
Okay.
Did you say something and we didn't hear it?
Yeah, apparently. I said, let's talk about what we liked about the audio, and apparently my mic didn't pick it up for whatever stupid
No,
reason.
we heard that, but we were waiting for you to say somebody.
Who's first?
Oh, well, it's actually Matt.
Oh. I see you say that. So general thing I liked about the audio... This is the elephant in the room. It's nice to have Eccleston back.
Yeah.
Obviously, elephant in the room. It's just nice to have Eccleston back, and he does seem rough on the edges, but by the end, you start believing he's back in the Ninth Doctor role again.
Yeah, it takes him a little bit to get into the voice, but
yeah. But by the end, he's definitely picking it back up again.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
And Bill?
All right. So, full disclosure, I have listened past this, but I wrote down my notes before I did. So I'll be reading it off as if I don't know what's happening. So I wrote, Nova seems interesting, and I'm putting her here on the hopes that the follow-through is just as good. She seems to know more than an indentured chef should, to the point that the doctor comments on it multiple times. Does that have to do with her life before the sphere? Either way, she fits the mold perfectly for a companion or a quasi-companion character.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, she doesn't come back after this audio. And I know that because I saw it on the wiki page.
Yeah.
Shame.
I
As in, not even past this particular chapter of this audio?
correct. I looked at
Wow.
this whole parts, and I looked at the actor's name, so I knew if there was an actor in multiple parts, I could list them as a quote companion. Nobody has more than one chapter other than Eccleston.
I think I remember the
Yikes.
next one starting out where we find out what happened to her, but I could be wrong.
I think
Oof.
Audrey's actor is mentioned multiple times on the, or like maybe that's just a wiki. I don't know if you were going off of Big Finish's website.
No, I was going off of Wikipedia.
Oh, I don't know what Wikipedia has. Okay.
Yeah, bye Nova. You didn't even last the full story. Yikes.
So that's what Alex likes.
Yep.
Honestly, I like the pacing because this went by really quick.
Mm.
And at least it felt like it to me. And I guess that's the difference between a New Who story for TV, where there'll be a lot of like little gaps here and there to take in visuals and people being able to have little quiet moments, whereas you obviously can't as much in audio only.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of continuous conversation.
Okay, let me rephrase. I did read this wrong. Nova and Audrey are within the next two. They're in all of volume 1.
Okay.
And then
So they do finish off the story, okay? I was going to say, at least
Yeah.
they could have finished off the story. Oof.
yeah. Yeah. I read that as episode 1, not volume 1, so I had to correct myself.
Someone just strum a guitar.
Hmm?
That I'm aware of.
Are you hearing things, Bill?
It was probably more likely someone's microphone coming unplugged and being plugged back in, but
Not that I'm aware of.
But yeah, of course, this is funny because like realizing how long the two parts that this section of the story is, I realized, oh my god, they're basically doing what I feel like New Who should be doing, having essentially like 20 to 30-minute parts and splitting them in half. As far as like for instead of like a full hour of story or 45 minutes or whatever, just do like 2 20-minute or whatever episode.
yeah, the way it was split like that made me think it was that each time they played the theme was a 30-minute break. So I actually thought that it was an hour for each title, but it's not quite
Yeah.
that long. It's more like an average of 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. And it was generally like, good, there was a break when there should have been, because bloody hell, it's getting kind of hard to watch certain New Who episodes back and be like, there should really be a break here. But yeah, generally, yeah, my overall thing was the pacing.
Yeah.
All right. So what I liked. That wasn't already said. No, I have to pass because I think you guys took everything. All right, so let's talk about what we didn't like. And again, Matt, you're first.
Trying to think I didn't like. Very, very nitpicky-ish, but I don't understand why the majority of the story had to be a flashback, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
that
was
did bother me.
yeah.
Why couldn't we just literally tell the story from the beginning properly and then go to where we needed to be?
Right.
Yeah, like
And then literally when the woman starts asking him questions, you literally fade out to slight melody and then silence for a second, then fade back in, and then so that's where you all came from. Yeah, and just go from there.
Hmm.
yeah, like it's almost one of those things where like I honestly forgot about the framing device of telling this in flashback at first after a while and was like, well, wait a minute, but what happened to the the stuff with like the people in the 50s and the Romans? Like, where'd that
Right.
go?
Well, apparently he's gotten to where the sources of the time heavy, so he can undo everything. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that.
All right.
All right. So on to me.
Yep.
So mine is very similar, or something about the structure bothered me. And it's partially because of what we've been talking about with the fact that it's basically part 1 and 2 of a 6-parter or part 1 of a 3-parter, but it's not structured as something that's telling its own story. It's not even structured the way like a New Who episode. There's usually a beginning, middle, and end, even if it's a 2-parter, and then it's, just two related stories. But this didn't feel that way to me, and I think the cold open had a lot to do with that. Because there's no ending. The ending is just, oh yeah, remember the beginning of the episode? We're there now. So with all of that going on, the structure just bothered me. And like you said, it might be kind of nitpicky, but it was annoying enough that it stuck out to me when I was kind of trying to come up with what I disliked afterward.
Okay. Alex.
uh I'm probably just gonna have to pass because I basically jumped in on Matt's because that was basically all I had.
Ah,
Because it's just like it's the one like glaring thing of just like this either the framing device either needed to be like I don't know. It feels like either the framing device maybe could have worked if they'd handled it differently, or had maybe just come up the once at near the start and then again at the very end of the second
Yeah.
part,
um,
and then like,
We've been
but
stuck
not
so
like
long in this flashback, it might be
constantly.
a flashback to another
Yeah.
flashback, and we're gonna break the fourth wall at this rate.
I'm trying not to give too many of my thoughts on it because I'm going to bring it up when we talk about specific scenes later. But I agree. Yeah, I agree with about the framing device.
Yeah, I agree as well because it's like, um, the more you read it, the more it was easily to see that uh, instead of it being a surprise reveal who the villainess was, you kind of started realizing it about halfway through the first part.
I can already tell there's
And you're
something
like,
up when
oh,
the stranger just comes up and starts pestering the doctor out of nowhere.
yep.
You have something to do with this, don't you? Lo and behold, they do. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, well, that's kind of a spoiled reveal. I could have been surprised by this.
Mhm.
Nope.
Nope, never mind.
Okay, favorite scene.
Ooh. Favorite scene. Mm. I think the moment when you realize the doctor's catching up to the listeners when he starts going, "Why am I answering so many questions from you?" It's when he's also beginning to realize you're the villain, aren't you?
Hmm.
But he goes, but in typical Doctor fashion, he goes along with it anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So
Bill?
my favorite scene was Dan Starkey explaining how brave he is for being beset with screaming spirits in the afterlife and defeating them.
As the Roman legionary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Alex.
Uh, I'm probably gonna have to go with. I mean, like, I think this is the one that I've been sitting on since I first listened to it. But I'll go with the first interaction the Doctor has with Nova, where it's like, oh, "Can you stop following me?" And then that whole thing, and then he's like, if you just drop back a bit and let me walk ahead of you, then it's like, then that'll make it solve it. It's like, but then I'll be following you. It's like, yes, but it'll be less awkward or whatever.
Are you just trying to be awkward?
Ah, that was a decent scene. Um, I think I have to go with the one where the doctor pulls out his solution. I was like, you were already knew what was going on when we did this last time. It's like, sort of. And he starts doing that thing that he did that annoyed the hell out of Rose. Sort of, yeah. Least favorite scene.
Ooh. Um. Oh, typical knee-jerk reaction. Open fire on the gladiators, the Romans. Knee-jerk military reaction. Here we go again. And no one
5
listens to
rounds
the
rapid.
doctor.
Well, yeah, a lack of
By
lack of
this
the
point, the
Brigadier.
Brigadier actually would have listened to him, but he
Right. If it
wasn't
was
around in the
actually if the brigadier was
50s.
actually in this era, he'd actually listen. But
Hmm.
I mean,
well,
hell,
a,
we're
a
even
decade
before
too
Group
early.
He,
Captain
he might have
Chunky
been in high
Gilmore.
school at this point.
Yeah, he might have been just out of high school or something. Actually.
Yeah, we're even before Group Captain Chunky Gilmore.
Uh,
Uh,
so now we're to my least favorite scene. So probably no surprise from what we were saying before, but the cold open. I think it might have worked better in a visual medium because it would give an opportunity to recognize people's faces and costumes and sets, and maybe even include some eye-catching Time Eddy visuals that would repeat later on.
Right.
But in an audio format, the only thing it introduces you to is Nova's voice at a point in the story when you don't know enough of what's going on to recognize what's significant and what's not. So it
And you
just
don't even know who
kind of
this Nova
leaves you
person is, so
right. So you just kind of start off disoriented and it doesn't really
Yeah.
work.
Hmm.
Alex.
Uh, oh, let's see. Um. Uh. Yeah. I just off
just
the
can't
top
think
of
of
my
something.
head, I can't. Can't really think of anything, so I'll just pass.
All right, pass for now.
All right.
Ran.
So mine is anytime they start mentioning the Time Eddies. And the only problem I have about this is that I'm an avid Douglas Adams reader. And so every time I hear it, my voice goes, my voice goes, Eddies in the time-space continuum. Oh, is he? Good for him then. I'm like, ah.
we could do it with some Douglas Adams humor right now.
I was waiting for just suddenly a Chesterfield sofa to appear, just as that hitchhiker shout out.
Ford, yes, I'm a sofa. I understand how you feel.
I guess
Whereas
if
I just think of the Magic the Gathering card.
And this shows the different universes we grew up in.
I guess one thing I will say, which is only really a nitpick, but it's the only thing I can really think of, is like when the Doctor and Nova are on their way doing something and then it switches to their voices sounding like they're coming through like security footage, but then you like hear the voice of the woman who's clearly watching them, and I'm like, I feel like if you just switch to the security footage sounding voices with no like, yes, I'm watching this and I'm just kind of letting this happen, etc. It's like, I don't know if we necessarily needed that, but yeah.
Well, if you didn't already get it, it was at least a tease to let us know who that person was that he's talking to. That they are involved already.
Although, how is that part of the Doctor's flashback?
Yeah, that's I
That's
guess
also
that's
actually
another
true.
thing.
To be fair, yeah, that's actually not part of the
how would the
flashback.
Doctor have heard that?
So they broke the fourth wall within the flashback.
So they did do was break the fourth wall. Yep. It's all coming together now. Yep, this is all Deadpool.
That's like 16 walls broken.
How did you know the parts you weren't there for?
You've read the script, you magnificent bastard.
Final thoughts. Matt.
Final thoughts. Interesting start. I'm glad to have Brain Eccleston back for this. I can understand that most of the characters aren't going to get past this story arc, but hopefully it's a good story. Only nitpicks so far, although it is kind of a mess start with mixing up the timeline of events. But hopefully from here we won't have to break any more walls and do more flashbacks. But we'll see.
Okay. So I'm saying I think it was a very disorienting start to the story. That said, the actual start in the 50s with the Romans and everything else was pretty badass, and I kind of wish that was the real start, because that's the part that I remembered as being the start. But yeah, it definitely leads into an interesting tease for what's to come. And definitely has potential. And yeah, good to have Christopher Eccleston back.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, pretty much. It's nice to hear Christopher Eccleston's voice in a new story. I mean, I joked before we started that at parts he sounded a bit like Paul McGann, but again, it might just be a matter of getting used to the medium, and just getting back in the swing of playing this character that he hasn't had to play in like over a decade, like almost, well, like over 15 years, I think. Yeah, 15 years it would have been, I think.
Yeah. He did this, probably recorded this in 2020 for 2020 run release, so yeah.
So yeah, like as we were even talking about beforehand, like he's just a lot older and he's had health issues and this, so he's probably not necessarily going to sound exactly the same anyway. But even then, with what he's got, he's doing pretty good. And I assume that's also why Volume 1 is just one continuous story to help ease him in. But yeah, there is a lot of like, wait, what? Where'd the Roman stuff go? Where'd all the where'd all the 50 stuff go? It's just kind of randomly is jumping all over the place. Like it's like almost like you would think that would be something Moffat would be pulling. Not being able to stick in one place, but with timey-wimey shit. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this feels listening back to it in 2 weeks as like the full thing. But at the very least, it's at least an interesting start, I guess. It's kind of hard to judge by virtue of it being part 1 and 2 of essentially a 6-part story.
Yep. All right, so down to me now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Chaotic is how I'm going to call this. It seemed to kind of drift all over the place. Flash forward, flashback, flash forward, flashback. You're not really sure what the hell was going on until the end. All in all, I think they needed to do a little bit more rewriting on this to make it a little more easily followable. And we'll see what the other two are like. And I have the sneaking suspicion it's going to end in a giant reset button. Because I know who's penning it.
Of course, it is funny because it just hit me that, oh, so this is essentially like the first episode of Flux.
Sort of,
it's like
yeah.
kind of a bit too much going. Kind of a bit too much going on and not enough focus.
Yeah, they both start with a lot going on, and something called the Ravagers is threatening to destroy the universe. And they're both a one long continuous story.
Dun dun dun.
And start with meeting a new companion.
Are you saying that Chris Chibnall stole a Nick Briggs plot and made it worse?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Anyway, that is pretty much all we have for this week, because we've decided not to vote on this until we get the entire story.
Yes, so there's no scrolling down the list. So I'll just say, don't. If you're listening to this, please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think if you've listened to Sphere of Freedom or the Ninth Doctor Adventures. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to get our YouTube exports every week. Or follow us on Twitch to get our streams every Tuesday night.
All right, so next week we'll continue with this story and try to figure out what the hell's going on. The Ninth Doctor Adventures will continue with Cataclysm, written by Nicholas Briggs and starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor and Kamala Beeput as Nova. We will see you then.
Good night. See you next time.